All right, so the scoring and slip method. Just kind of a review. Showed it in the other video, but I want to make sure I show it one more time. In terms of attaching your appendages, so your arms, your legs, your horns, tentacles, feet, things of those natures, the ones that I talked about and I showed you in the slideshow. And so I'm going to have an open monster on this one. So first thing I need to do, there's a little bit of cracking happening here, which isn't that big a deal. So I'm just going to carefully kind of drag my finger, my thumb across, just kind of erasing those little lines. Because again, anything that you don't erase and don't smooth out will be there forever if you let it dry and it goes through the kiln and gets fired. So I'm trying to get rid of those the best I can. Like this one's kind of a big one. I'll get rid of that one. Okay. So the walls of my pot are pretty good in terms of the even of thickness. It's a little off. So if that's bothering you, you can use your knife tool and you can trim it a little bit. Just kind of have to go slowly from both sides so it's a little bit more even. That's a little bit better. I can even tap it gently if I really want to even it up. And then I can sort of erase those lines around the lip, figure out how smooth I want it with my dry fingers, right? And now I have to figure out like how I want this to be oriented. Again, scraps of clay, go with the scraps in the bag, squish it so that the air stays out of it, and so on. So I think I'm going to have mine sitting up sort of like this, okay? Because if I did it like this way, it would just kind of be like, this would be like its back. Okay, so I'm gonna curve that out a little bit more. So I'll kind of push my fingers, whoops, a little bit of a crack. So I want it to stay, so I'm just gonna sort of hold the sides, tap that into place. So it's going to stay in the orientation in which I want it. So that's nice and flat. That's gonna stay that way. It'll sit when it's fired very nicely. So now I'm going to start attaching some things to it. And one thing you can do, if your clay is getting a little dry and you've got like a little piece, you can kind of just sort of dunk it in the water a little bit, and you can kind of squish it, and I'm sort of layering it, so on. And if you just kind of squish and turn, and squish and turn, so on, it gets kind of sticky, like my hands are getting really dirty, but I'm reconstituting the clay a little bit so it's more pliable and more plastic. Let's see, as it goes, it won't be quite as sticky. And again, I wouldn't want to flatten this on my table. I will show you in class where the tools are to create what are called slabs, or the flat pieces of clay. Okay, so I've got my clay and I'm going to start making some things here. So I'm going to make an arm. So I'll kind of brush that off, clean off my area, make myself a little arm. So I'll make a little coil. And there's a certain way to make coils so that they kind of have to let them roll on their own a little bit. Kind of bring your hands up. We'll talk about coils a little bit more later on. That way they're flat. If you just keep going back and forth with a coil and you try to make a little thing and you just keep doing this, you're going to get these finger marks in here from doing that, and we don't want that. So let's keep that off there. All right, so I'm going to have like 2 arms. I could have gone thicker. The thinner you go with the clay in your appendages and things that you have, the more likely it is going to be breaking before it gets to the kiln, but I'm very careful when I put it in there. So this is probably about as thin as you want to get it. If people can put some really tiny details, if they're short, it'll be okay, but if they're long, really skinny things, it's going to be a good chance that they are going to not make it. Okay. All right. So I've got my arms. I'm going to make them the same size. All right, I'm going to have my arms, and I'm going to curve them. So I'm just going to sort of curve the clay a little bit here. Make sure they're kind of the same. Looks pretty good. And let's see, how do I want to put those? I'm going to make them in an angle a little bit. I'm going to tap them so I can kind of angle them a little bit. Do that a little bit more. So I've made an angle here. Pinch that out. So now when I put these on, they'll be on like so. So here's the deal. Now with scoring, score and slip, we're using water because the clay is still fairly wet. When clay gets really dry, we'll get to the slip bucket. I've got to make some slip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dunk this in the water a little bit, and I'm going to sort of do that. Now, if you just let that go like this will fall off. So that is not attached. But I'm only doing that, so now I know where I need to score here, because I know I need to do it on the end. So I need to score right there. So okay, take my scoring tool. But before I do that, I think I'm going to do it on the other side too. So I'm going to do that because I realize something. If I don't do it now, it's going to be a problem. So I'm going to just go ahead and make my mark on the other side, and I'm just going to do this really fast. Just make a little X and a little X. Now you could score it with your knife tool, but you notice it just kind of makes little kind of lines in it, and those aren't very good scoring marks. All right, get my arms out of here, out of the way. So I'm going to score this nicely. I'm going to hold it on the inside so it doesn't deform the clay. I'm going to score it nicely there. Score it nicely over here. Make sure the ridges are still staying there. Looks pretty good. There we go. Then I'll score the ends. Go crossways. We want to try to get it good and rough. If you end up scoring it and it kind of knocks it down, like that's a really good one. Okay, if it sort of knocks it down, then go back and rescore it, and don't forget to clean off your tool so that it's not all gunked up and you go to score it and it doesn't work anymore. Okay, so again, we'll use our water and our brush, and I'm just going to sort of dab a little there, dab a little there, and I'll go ahead and do it on the other side as well. It can't hurt. Now, if you do this and you accidentally knock the little scoring marks down, you can just take your tool and just rescore it a little bit. Make sure I've got the arms in the right spot. And I'm going to hold it in the inside, and I'm just going to press it on there. And once I have it down, I'm just going to smooth that out. Whoops, and I knocked mine down a little bit on there, so I'm going to rescore that a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and attach that one. Pressing again, I'm holding it on one side and the other, the inside as well as the outside. Okay, and we want to erase those lines so that we cannot see them. Now sometimes you'll end up with a little scoring marks. A lot of these knife tools have this little end here, and I can come in and I can smooth that out nicely so you won't even see where I attached it. There's also some wooden tools over there that do the same thing. Okay, so now my arms are on. This one's a little bit weird, so I'm going to fix it a little bit. And because my clay is fairly pliable still, I can move it into a different configuration. And again, I'm holding it on the inside when I'm doing this so that I'm just sort of changing the clay a little bit, you know. And I've got my arms, and that's how you attach various pieces. And of course, we can do the same thing when we start doing details. Like if I was going to make a scale, and let's say I flattened out a little piece, and I cut it, into a little scale shape. And if you were doing scales like this, I would recommend, just maybe doing some in an area. So I've got my little scale. I'm going to go ahead and score it. I'll score it over here. Put a little water on it, both sides. And I'm going to go ahead and sort of push it down gently. Don't want to push it down too much. Kind of wiggle it, and if it is not moving, then you're in good shape. And again, I can take this curved piece here, and I can actually kind of come in and delete any evidence that it was attached. Okay, and I can do the same thing for like eyes. I can do the same thing for claws. But think about your average thickness about like this. Don't really go, I wouldn't go any smaller than that. If these end up being larger, that's totally fine. Like this one here, this is going to be relatively large. So we can put quite a bit of things, we can put larger things in the kiln. It does not have to be small. But that is our scoring and our slip.